Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today's guest is Britt Gottschalk, and she's the CEO of Genomi. Britt, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here, Adam. Thanks for having me.
All right, Britt, so we got a big topic today. We're going to have lots of fun. So improving public opinion on medical research. So we're going to get into that and more. And just to get us kicked off, we'll start this with our Mission Matters Minute. So Britt, at Mission Matters, our goal and our aim is to amplify stories that we feel need to be heard. That's our mission. Britt, what mission matters to you?
The mission that matters to me is helping advance medical research by allowing people to monetize their health data.
That's a super interesting topic. We've been talking about monetizing data and what that looks like for a long time. Like, how did you get this idea? Like, where'd that come from?
Yeah, well, like all people that try to find something good to create a business around, I started in consulting. And so I actually don't have a background in any kind of clinical research, genomics, biology, none of that. I had a background in psychology. Was really interested in helping people solve really complex problems. And in my journey of doing that, some of the companies that I worked with in the management consultant space focused on project management, process improvement, that kind of stuff. It was usually in industries that, were ripe for innovation and change. So industries like insurance, finance, healthcare. And I actually came up with the idea of Genomi in working in some of those different capacities, working with some clients and figuring out, what are some of the things that they want to see improved about their day-to-day jobs and everyday lives. And a lot of that came back to data accessibility. The pandemic really exacerbated the issues that come with the transferability and accessibility of different types of medical data. So medical records, genomic data, all that good stuff.
So like any idea, and a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this, by the way, so just so you know, so a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of executives. So what you just now said, I mean, that's a big idea. Like where'd you start with this? Like, how did this all begin?
So this is actually my second company, and it all started with my first company. So at the time, I was working for a management consulting firm out of Madison, Wisconsin, and the pandemic hit. And so I had this somewhat of a come to Jesus moment with myself where I was like, you know what, I don't know if I'm doing everything that I want to with my life. Is this really fulfilling? And so, I decided to cut my teeth and start my own consulting firm. And while I was doing that,
was that scary? Was that scary?
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, totally. I didn't know what I was doing. And some days I still don't, right? But I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to take a chance because what do I have to lose? The whole world was full of uncertainty. And so, I don't know, I just found that to be reason to try something new. And so did that. And about a year into my consulting venture, I had been working with teams in finance, insurance, and healthcare to help them with the remote work transition. I was faced with a very difficult decision because we weren't able to keep up with like the McKinseys, right? Like I was a mom and pop operation. It was me and my business partner, and we were just, trying to figure out how to do this thing. It was my first time starting a business. And so I was like, okay, I got to find something more sustainable. I got to find something that is probably going to make a bigger difference. And in that research, it was like I kept seeing with some of the clients, they were like, and my advisors, there were different areas of focus that were starting to kind of rear its head over the pandemic's course. So, for example, issues with data accessibility, issues with technology and integration. These are things that got exacerbated because of the pandemic. And so as I started talking to my advisors and clients, I'm like, what other problems are coming out that you want to see solved? So, took a lot from the people closest to the problems and figured out a way to commercialize the idea of Genomi. And so, of course, this is expedited, but this is over maybe 12 to 16 months of doing research and trying to figure out what am I going to do, right? And so when I decided to pivot from consulting to biotech, I guess what really solidified that was when I pitched the idea to an investor in Milwaukee, and they're ready to write me a check for a seed round for $400,000. And I was like, all right, guess we're doing that. So I closed down the consulting firm and opened up Genomi.
Yeah. Now, okay, so you have this concept, you have this idea, you're moving forward, you have your first seed investor. And now you're thinking about, like, obviously you're getting further and further within the industry. Did anything surprise you, like, as you're thinking about, like, figuring out how to, like, extract the most value from this data? Like, did anything surprise you about the industry or otherwise?
Oh, definitely. I remember I had this thought that, oh, okay, well, because it's clinical research or medical science, like, oh, they have the best of everything. They're going to be able to access whatever data they want on any population, all of the health systems, the ones that keep track of our electronic medical records, they all talk to each other. It's just transferability is super easy. And that was something that I was really, interested in digging into when I found out that that was not the case. It's really this huge black box that needed a lot of improvements. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's really common for people to think that, oh, just because like there are these companies or universities that are pumping out great medical treatments and advancements when it comes to, drugs and different types of care, they don't always have the best of everything. And a lot of the times they have to rely on people like us to be able to get that information to help them create better outcomes when it comes to clinical research and trials.
Talk about monetizing the health data just for medical research purposes. Like, how does that work?
Sure. So I guess from what GenomeMe does, like we allow people to control their health data at scale, and it's because we believe that they own it. And so you have the rights to your own data. You have the rights to access it because it is yours, even though it is housed in systems like, I think what's most common is Epic MyChart or Cerner Millennium, or, you might even get some different information from 23andMe or Ancestry.com reports, but all of that data is yours. And so it's yours to sell. There aren't really any restrictions around you commoditizing or monetizing your health data. It's just about finding which industries are going to get the most use out of it. And in this case, it'd be medical researchers.
How does the public, when you're having this conversation with the end user, like the consumer, that, the one that actually has the data, like how does that normally go? Because this is a new concept, I feel like. If you're in the tech side of things and otherwise, like then you kind of understand this. But if we're thinking at the very basic level for the masses, this is kind of new. It's a different kind of conversation. Like how does that piece go? Like public adoption of this concept?
Yeah. So we actually call people that would like to contribute their health data. We call them contributors in our platform.
Thank you.
Yep, contributors. And so, in the medical sciences space, just generally in research, there's been discussions and whispers about allowing people to monetize their health data. But I know that that's not necessarily something I could discuss with the public a lot. Yeah. But realistically,
that's what I mean. Like the hierarchy knows this conversation, and they know the value of that data, and they know all of this, especially like whether it's big pharma, whatever it is, right? Like they know, but the public, I feel like they don't necessarily always know. Speaking for myself, I can't value what my data would be worth. You know what I mean?
Right. And so, what we're trying to do here is also a bit of a proof of concept to be able to say, we will charge X amount for your data, and you will get X amount back if you decide to sell it. And a lot of that comes back to more consumer rights, more patient protections and patient rights around being able to own and, house their own data in whatever systems they choose. There hasn't been a ton of patient-centric ideas around the ownership of data, even though it does make these pharmaceutical companies and research facilities trillions of dollars every single year.
And talk to me about some of the benefits other than the monetary side, because I feel like there are more reasons why somebody might want to share their data. Obviously, for money, that's good. I'm not negating that, but like putting that piece aside for a moment is like research or like, I don't know, can you go like a layer deeper on like the implications of why, if somebody wants to, obviously it's a right, if somebody wants to, why it could be beneficial for them to share?
Definitely. There's that altruism piece to it. So more widespread data usage can create better medication options, better treatment options for people. The research that's affiliated with using any kind of genetic tie, pharmacogenomics, how a person's genetics influences a body's responses to drugs in addition to electronic medical record data. When you get data on different populations, you're able to research how those different drugs affect different populations, whether they're part of a family or whether they're part of a main demographic. A lot of the data that's out there right now that's being used for medical research purposes or clinical trial purposes belongs to one major demographic that has access to medical care or, has the ability to afford it. And that is Caucasian men for the most part that are middle-aged. And I'm not a Caucasian man. And so if there's any kind of like study or trial being done on a drug that treats a form of cancer that I might have, I want to see how that affects people that are part of my demographic.
Yeah. That's a great point. And I think what this also does, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like over time, like the amount of additional, this also is it's got to be cheaper, right? Like in terms of like for
Oh
the
yeah.
companies, the people doing the research, everything else, because the data's already there, but the cost to purchase data that's already there versus trying to create this subset of people and trying to bring them together and like I don't know if there's even a number on that. If you want to just speak to that in general when you kind of think of the other side of this, like the cost has to be like there's win-wins, I feel like in across the board on
Oh,
different sides of the coin.
definitely. Like affordability of drugs, that
Hmm.
becomes more widespread. You are
Yeah.
getting data from the source, which is the patient, not just, a patient consented to a system to being able to use it and they de-identify it and then sell it. I mean, with our platform, we're able to connect patient to researcher and researcher to patient through that consent process. So you're getting the data that you need on specific populations based on, their ability to provide that for you, and they're constantly informed about it. Also, a very different way to look at it is looking at, clinical trials, clinical research as a form of primary care. I don't know about you, but when I go to the physician or, just go to my physician's office, my primary
Yeah.
care physician, I don't usually get talked to about how I could potentially get involved in clinical trials or maybe how my family members can get involved unless, they're very sick. But
Mm.
there's a lot of really great uses for, control population data. So somebody who might not
Yeah.
be sick but is just interested in, hey, here's my health data, like, use it for any type of research that you might want to conduct. As long as I'm getting compensated for it,
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. So
Yeah.
different ways to look at it.
And I can think of, so I have one example, and for everybody listening, my mom's okay with me sharing this, okay? So I don't want no emails. You shouldn't be talking about your mom's personal. This isn't it. She says it's okay, but she was one of the first people really diagnosed with Crohn's disease, like years ago. I mean, I
Oh,
was a kid, and I mean to the point to where she's in like the medical books, like they study her, like period. She's still with
wow.
us, by the way. She's fine. She's healthy.
Oh,
She's
great.
retired in Florida, listening to this somewhere. So don't worry about her. She's living her best life. I think she told me she just went to bike week and why didn't I come? Like, come on, she's okay. But that being said, like she's been participating and like providing her data for years without being incented, and that's okay. Like she's not complaining about that. She wanted to be able to help others as well while they were trying to figure out what this disease even was. And so we're
Yeah.
talking, I don't know, maybe 20 plus years more probably if I'm off on my numbers, because a decade, when I blink nowadays, a decade passed. So maybe could have been more. I don't
Oh.
know at this point. but
Oh no.
but
Well,
that being said, I see like how like beneficial that other side of it is in developing, and how her information has been able to help a lot of other people. Like now that it's a little bit more, I won't say a mature disease. I might be using that terminology wrong, but I mean like we just understand more about it now, right? There's other
oh
treatment
yeah.
options. But her
Yeah.
participating and spending that time was a piece of that. So that
Yeah.
become of whatever amount it was, but that's a piece of it. So I can see like that being like there can be some other wins there, like long term, just for all of us. Because one thing's for certain, when it comes to healthcare and anything else, I'm all like, I don't, whether you're sick now, not sick now, whatever. Like at some point in our lives, we're all gonna need it in some way, shape, or form. So I love when people like yourself are out there innovating and thinking of new ways and finding out ways to progress the whole system. Because when I need it, I want it to work. How about that, Britt?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. No, and I'm glad to hear that your mom is still with us.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
to your point, like chronic conditions, rare
Mm.
diseases, these affect millions of Americans. I think
Mhm.
I think it's, don't quote me on this, but about 30 million Americans actually have some type of rare disease. Which isn't that
Mm.
rare. I mean, with gene therapies increasing, especially, being able to say within a degree of certainty that certain drugs or treatments are going to have a positive impact on people that might have different types of blood disorders or cancers, it's more beneficial for all of us to be able to get treated from a pool of our
Mm.
peers. And we can make that happen with a way that's a little bit more accessible or a little bit more
Yeah,
comfortable for people to share their data. So,
I agree. Well, Britt, it has been great having you on the show, and I appreciate you letting us into the world of Genome. If somebody's listening to this and they want to learn more, how do they do that?
well, they can go to www.yourgeno.me, and you can become a contributor or a researcher or submit a contact form to get in contact with us, or you can send an inquiry to hello@yourgeno.me,
Mm.
and we'll get back to you.
Amazing. Amazing. And we'll put all that information in the show notes so that the audience can just click on the links. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with us, hey, and you need that invitation, that special invite, this is it. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done it yet. This is a daily show. Each and every day we're bringing you new episodes, new amazing entrepreneurs like Britt, and we're upskilling everybody because the whole point is we all want to learn and grow together. So definitely hit that subscribe button. And if you're a long-term listener and you haven't left a review yet, hey, please do that. Just hit the, write a review on Apple Podcast. That helps the show grow. And we really appreciate it. And Britt, thank you so much for making some time out to come share the Genome story with us. So we appreciate it.
It was wonderful to be here. Thanks, Adam.